Keegan Murray from the Sacramento Kings. 6'8", 215 pounds. He also just barely makes the age cutoff, despite this only being his third season coming up in the NBA. 15 points per game, took a nice little jump this year. Always has been a super high level shooter over the course of really his last 3 years, last year at Iowa and first year in the NBA, second year in the NBA, makes them off of movement at a significant level. I thought he was awesome this past season, was worth 8.4 wins, according to dunksandthrees.com, using their EPM model. Shot 45, 35, 83 last season, but a lot of those threes, I think, are really, really difficult attempts at the end of the day. Like, he takes shots off of movement, off of flares, off of some pin downs from time to time, always relocating kind of off the ball as off of offensive rebounds, which is really important with Sabonis, right? This is he's just kind of an awesome two-way player. And I think that the part of his game that hasn't gotten enough notice yet is the defense.
Yep.
He has turned himself into like a really solid big wing defender who can take on more difficult matchups.
And he's going to have to do more and more of that, right? Like, that is going to be, I feel like his role this year is going to be take those matchups, depending on who they end up starting. But I think that's going to be what he has to do. Yeah. I mean, notes from a Sun game, taking the Booker matchup, which, had been a huge part of his overall development this year, I think. And then the other thing, as I was reading through my notes, he just was like making impactful plays throughout the whole game. And he was one of those guys, I love these guys, that make like the momentum stopping shots where the other team's going on a run, and then everybody remembers game winners or, the three that caps off a 10-0 run for your team. How about the three that stops the 10-0 run for the other team? Those are the ones that I don't think gets appreciated enough. And as I read through my notes on Keegan, there was a lot of those where I made notes of him making big shots in those moments. And even though the 3-point percentage went down just a little bit this season, his percentage at the rim went up by almost 10. His percentage from 3 to 10 feet went up by almost 20, 10 to 16 feet. Like, the only place his percentages went down were from the 3-point line. And you highlighted the level of difficulty on those. The other thing, he's been very available through 2 seasons in the NBA, 80 games played and 77 games played. So I think this is an ultimate, I don't mean this in a bad way, but like role play, like just a wing role player. He can attack a closeout in a straight line a little bit. And then you mentioned the defensive stuff. I just think this is a very valuable player in the NBA.
I think he's a valuable player in the NBA as well. It's really hard to find two-way guys who are like legitimately good defenders, who are super high level shooters, and who can create, driving and being able to, get to the rim, particularly get to a mid-range jumper more than get to the rim a lot of the time, it feels like, with Keegan. The thing that he did at Iowa that we haven't seen a lot of yet is he used to like really hammer mismatches against guards.
Yeah, sure.
That's what I would like to see him like take that next jump. I would like to see him like really crush mismatches against guards, because he should be able to get those given the way that their starting lineup is going to look. I would think that he would be able to find these little matchups where he's able to, run a 1-4 ball screen, because he'll probably play the 4 this year with De'Aaron Fox, DeMar DeRozan, him, and, Keon Ellis maybe ends up being the starter. I would like to see him be able to end up screening, getting a switch, just going down on the block. It's a little bit hard because Sabonis is always on the block. So you'd have to like kind of invert the offense and have Sabonis kind of out front. Like, and you have to maybe throw like it have to be like a horn set where it's, a reversal out to Sabonis, and Sabonis throwing like a high-low pass into Murray or something. You'd have to like kind of figure out the way to make that work in a more substantial, interesting way, just in terms of the spacing. But I think he can do it. The big thing that I wonder about with him is the passing and like the decision-making at the end of the day.
Yeah.
He just hasn't really ever shown the capacity to make good passing reads. And I wonder if that will end up kind of limiting him toward being more of a okay, I'm like an unbelievable role player who can occasionally take advantage of mismatches and be like a scoring role player. Maybe like a Tobias Harris that's like a plus defender, right? A Tobias Harris that's a plus defender probably makes an all-star game at some point, is my opinion, right?
Yeah, I mean, Tobias Harris had some really good seasons.
Yeah, like Tobias Harris averaged, over
He
20
he
points per game a couple
yeah,
times, right? Like,
yeah.
he was at 20 points per game that year that he was in LA and Philly when he got traded. That was the only year.
49, 40, 87 season with 8 rebounds. Like, that's a pretty good year.
Yeah, that was unbelievable. Like his second year in Philly, he was at 19.6 points, 7 rebounds, 3 assists, shot 47, 37, 80. Even this past season, like you said, 17 points, 49, 35, 88. The year before that, 15 points per game, 50, 39, 88.
Well,
If you
the
add in being a great defender on top of that, that's where the real impact I think comes into play.
Sam, I mean, Tobias, I don't mean to turn this into a Tobias Harris thing, but that third year in the second full year, third year in Philly, he was almost 50, 40, 90. 51.2% from the
Yeah.
field, 39.4 from three, 89.2 from the free throw line, and average almost 7 rebounds and 3.5 assists, and almost 2
Yeah.
stocks. Like, what is he? So, yeah, like this, that's an interesting thing but Tobias isn't ever like your primary guy that's creating the offense and everything's running through him, right? Like and so I think, yeah, that's an interesting thing. Like you said, when you add in the defense as well, that Keegan,
When you add in that he's like a serious defender as well, who does a great job on that end. Yeah. Keegan is a really, really good player, I think, that goes like way under the radar. Probably because he plays for the Kings, right? But also, they just signed DeMar DeRozan. I'm interested to see kind of where his role ends up settling in. You know what I mean? Like, where does he end up kind
that
of
takes the ball out of his hands even more, right? Like that
a
was
little
my
bit?
first
Yeah.
thought is I wondered what that meant about the Kings' thought of Keegan Murray in terms of being a primary, secondary scoring option if they felt like they had to go get a guy like DeRozan.
Yeah. No, I know. It was interesting. I think it was probably just like a pure talent acquisition move to
Sure,
go get
could
DeMar,
be. Yeah,
but we'll see where it settles, right? But Keegan's a really good player. Like Keegan's just solid at everything except for the passing.
yeah.
If the passing ever comes along, he is going to be really, really something. But the passing not being there is enough of a concern for me to where I couldn't quite get him much higher than this on my list. I think that this is like right where he was on my list potentially.
Yeah, same.